Okay, so today's video is going to be an interesting video, and it's going to be chock full of some stress, anxiety, as well as hopefully a great upgrade whenever we're done. We're going to be installing the upgraded suspension on the 2024 Forest River Surveyor, and the process of installing it, you need to lift at least most of the weight off of the axles of your trailer. Now, if you saw the video on these cribbing blocks from Mighty Products, which is an absolutely fantastic supporter of the channel, and they make these really cool, very heavy-duty blocks that are designed to essentially stack up and create this kind of a, I guess, a Lincoln log style built platform so you can load things on it. It's very heavy duty. These things, I think individually are, I forgot exactly what they are, but they're rated well over like 20 or 30 tons in terms of crush capacity, as well as the pad that's there as well. We have a 6-ton jack stand right here, and on top of it we have a 2x4. Now the 2x4 is not resting perfectly inside because it won't fit. But for what we're planning on doing here, I don't believe we're going to have any issue with the 2x4 either slotting in or just shifting slightly to fit into that groove. Main reason why is because I wanted something that spanned the entire width of the frame rail. So the actual frame is going to be resting on the 2x4, each side of the frame rail, and the 2x4 will be resting on the jack stands. So we're going to monitor this very closely to see how well this works. We've lowered the front of the RV pretty much to the ground. I have the tractor out here because I had to remove the continuum. The B&W continuum was preventing me from lowering as far down as I was needing to go. And unfortunately, the tractor doesn't have the lifting capacity to be able to lift up the tongue. But again, the goal here is to get most of the weight off of the axle so we can remove the tires as well as the suspension component. And to get to the tires, we'll simply use a hydraulic jack underneath each axle to raise it up high enough so we can remove the tire. I'm going to use the UltraFab tongue jack, electric tongue jack right here to raise it up. I do have tire chocks in place on the campside. I think almost everyone will agree, unless you have some really high-end professional equipment to lift up your RV, you know, anytime you do it in your driveway, it's a little bit more stressful than you might think. I went ahead and put a large tire chock right here. Definitely can see the weight transferring to that 2x4, but I stopped real quick so I could put that tire chock in place. We're going to keep the process here. This thing right here is rated at 4,000 pounds, so then it's more than enough to be able to lift up the majority of the RV. We're going to come back here and see what's going on. Want to make sure nothing's shifting. I don't have stands that are starting to balance funny. 2x4 seems to be working great. This one you can see it slipped in a little bit right there, but on the other side it's right on the edge. Even if it snaps kind of the wood away from the edge there, it's not gonna do anything to where I think it'll compromise how well this is gonna work. At this point, we don't have the axles off the ground, but there's certainly a lot less weight resting on them. Yeah, we're actually at a point here where I can slightly move some of the components around. So next thing I want to check is how much of the weight do we actually have off of the axles at this point, because the next thing we want to do is to be able to remove the tires and in turn remove the factory triangle suspension equalizer right there. So I think we have pretty much all the weight we need off of the axles to move forward. Next thing I'm going to do is put these jack stands underneath the front A-frame section right here, just to be able to support the weight. I'll keep the front tongue jack down, but these will be essentially in case there's any type of an issue with that, so they don't all of a sudden fall on me. That's not something I want to have happen today. We could probably lift it up a little higher, but I don't think we need to at this point. I think we're at a level where I could easily fit the hydraulic jack underneath each axle, raise it up a little bit, and start removing the tires. Okay, so the next step is to jack up the axle. I have these rubber blocks right here that go on the hydraulic jack so I don't have metal on metal. And I just need to raise it up just enough to get the tire to spin. That lets you know just how close it was to coming off the ground by doing it this way with the jack at the back and then just cranking up the front. This is a really important part that you have to get right because you do not want any of this to collapse on you while you're working. And right now everything looks really good. I don't have the secondary pin in place, but I don't plan on being back here messing with those at all. But we are at a point now where we can remove this tire, and then I can go ahead and put another jack stand on the other one as well so we can remove that tire. I'm going to do the front axle now. And again, just enough to spin the tires. So now we have minimal upward pressure on the axle because we have the RV sitting so high and both tires are able to spin freely. So now we're going to go ahead and remove these lug nuts so we can remove each tire. Okay, so next step is to remove the lug nuts using my reversible kit that I always tell you guys about because this thing is absolutely fantastic. Let's find the right size socket. It's going to be right there. And these require a thin wall socket as well. Okay, so I have both tires off, and I placed them over here in the same order, same position that they'd be on here, simply because of the TPMS sensors. I don't want to have to fuss with those later. The axles are being supported by the hydraulic jacks. The trailer is being supported by the jack stands. So we're in a good position now. Okay, so I have all the pressure on this jack, this hydraulic jack, removed, and this is what the setup looks like at the moment. And this one still has a little bit of weight on it, but I can go ahead and take that off, and this probably isn't going to drop down any more than it already is because I can actually move some of these components a little bit, which means they're not under an excessive amount of pressure at this point. So let's go ahead and remove these fasteners. And before we get any further, let me show you the components we'll be putting on. I know a lot of folks said go with the Dexter EasyFlex system and the Dexter heavy-duty shackle straps and wet bolts, but I decided to go with the Lippert Equaflex system because I really like this design right here. I know that both systems are independent, but I've kind of heard better reviews about this one in terms of the actual shock absorption that it has. Both of them use a rubber bushing, and with enough miles, they'll eventually wear out. I don't think I'll put that many miles on it, to be honest, but this is a really good setup, and it should fit really well as a replacement to the factory equalizer that's in there. Now, as far as the heavy-duty shackle straps, greasable wet bolts, I just opted for the Morryde. I think the fit and finish on them is a little bit nicer, plus they're a little larger overall, and these should go right in as well. I have kind of a creative way to remove the old bushings and to get these in as well, so hopefully that works for me. But let's go ahead and get these parts removed so we can continue on. Okay, so comparing side by side, what comes on the Surveyor are these, and these are what we're going to be replacing them with. But to be honest with you, these are actually nicer than a lot of them that I see on smaller travel trailers. So I don't think that these would have failed anytime imminently, but yeah, we're definitely just taking some precautionary measures here and putting something super, super, super robust on. Again, when you compare it, they're twice as thick as these shackle straps, and greasable, which is really nice. Now, if we look at the suspension here, you'll see we got to remove these nylon bushings. Now, they should come out relatively easy because there's not a ton of wear and tear on them. So hopefully we can get these out without too much of a fuss, but let's find out. Okay, so I bought these metal rods. They're stainless steel, very, very polished rods off of Amazon because they were nearly the perfect diameter to fit inside of these little slots right here. Hopefully I can drive out the existing bushings with these. If not, I'll go grab a slotted screwdriver and see if I can pry them out. There we go. Got them out, no problem at all. Not much wear and tear on them, but you can definitely see, the benefit of going to something that's greasable. This is the equalizer that we removed. And this is the one going in, the Lippert Equaflex. Now this top wet bolt that we're installing here does not need a bushing on it because there's already a bronze bushing inside of the Equaflex up here, as well as right here. So we'll only be putting new bushings in right here in the spring eyelets. Next, we're going to go ahead and install both of the spring bushings. Again, we're not going to need the bottom bronze bushing, only the top one. So the first thing we want to do is actually get the bushing inside of the spring eyelet. That was pretty easy. And then we're going to position these in. Now some people will mount it this way so it's easier to get to the zerk from the other side. I think that's how I'm going to do it here, only because when the tire's in place it's going to make it a little bit more difficult, and it's also going to make it easier to get to the bolts to actually tighten this. So we want to mess with the hanger here. Just feed it in like that. We're going to throw this one on right here. And these will actually tighten down in an interesting way. So if you look at the edge, you can see it's actually pressed right here, so it's more of an oval shape than a pure circle. So once this actually goes on, this right here kind of tapers out a little bit and they lock in place. So if you ever have to remove these components, and you'll see how they only go up a certain distance, but if you ever have to remove them, you have to replace them. You don't want to reuse your fasteners unless you absolutely have to. Maybe you're stuck on the side of the road and it's an emergency repair, but you want to remove these bolts and replace this assembly if you ever have to take this off. Okay, we have that side done. Let's do the other side. What I need to do next is go ahead and grease all this, because if I don't, then I'm going to be trying to crawl around underneath the axles from the other side, and it's a lot easier since I'm already here. So I'm going to go ahead and put some grease inside of these grease zerks. Okay, time to lower the RV down. Okay, so we're going to do the rest of this off camera, and we're definitely going to have a towing demonstration so you can see exactly how the system actually works and get an idea for yourself if this is an upgrade worth doing. I always recommend doing a suspension equalizer upgrade. I think it is kind of a no-brainer upgrade because anytime you can really lighten that shock that's transferring from the road to the chassis of the RV, it's always a good thing. This is a great upgrade because when you couple it with the heavy-duty shackle straps, those half-inch thick shackle straps and greasable wet bolts, bronze bushings, it just gives you a far more reliable, confident, and longer-lasting towing experience. Now, you know a nut is tight when the middleweight DeWalt XR half-inch impact wrench won't work, and you have to move to the high-output DeWalt XR. Okay, so you won't believe this. I completed the entire opposite side off camera in 20 minutes. Not even kidding you. That's actually to the point of me having to lift the axles up, remove both tires, and remove the entire assembly, put the new assembly in place, get everything lined up, and get it all tightened down in 20 minutes. The other side took almost an hour and a half because I was recording it. And the process of recording obviously takes a long time. You can hear I'm a little out of breath because I've been moving stuff around. I've been crawling underneath so I could grease the Zerks, which are greased, and everything is set up now. And to wrap things up, once again, this is one of my most highly recommended upgrades you can do on a newer travel trailer or RV. There's fifth wheels as well that could use this upgrade. It doesn't have to be this brand. It doesn't have to be the LCI Equaflex system. It could be the Dexter EasyFlex. It could be the Morryde Cree 3000 or the Ultrex system from Morryde. As long as you're focusing your attention on creating some shock dampening between the ground and the chassis of your RV, that's all that really matters to me. And you're also reinforcing this area with those heavy-duty shackle straps and greasable wet bolts. And again, this is a really cool upgrade. I've been wanting to do this for a while. I wanted to get my blocks here in place so I could do it as safely as possible. Because again, anytime you have to raise up your RV off the ground is kind of stressful. And I wanted to be sure that I did it, especially since I'm doing it by myself with as little stress as possible. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you've enjoyed this video. Go back and check out the Mighty blocks right here if this is something you're interested in. A lot better, a lot more stable, a lot higher capacity than using like railroad ties that are cut up, and it gives you a much flatter platform to be able to balance things on. But I'm super impressed with this upgrade, very happy with it, just waiting to take the RV out so we can test it out. Anyways, guys, I sure hope you enjoyed the video. I'll throw a link in the description of this video to all the stuff that we put on, and I definitely want to give a big shout out to my friends over at Morryde and my friends over at eTrailer for providing all this equipment to me. Thanks again. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment and hit that subscribe button. It lets me know that you like to follow the content and that I'm putting out content that you enjoy. And hit that thumbs up so YouTube knows that you like the video. We'll talk to you again very soon.